At his own engagement party, Daniel felt like a stranger in his own life. The music was loud, laughter echoed around him, and yet his thoughts were somewhere else, back in his small apartment, where his 5-year-old daughter waited with a babysitter he could barely afford. Daniel was a single father who had learned to survive on little sleep and even less money. This engagement, to a woman from a wealthy family, was supposed to change everything. Stability. Security. A better future for his child. That's what he kept telling himself. Then she walked in. The room shifted as Eleanor Grant, a well-known billionaire, entered quietly, dressed with simple elegance that somehow commanded more attention than the glitter around her. She wasn't supposed to be here, or at least, not someone like her. Their eyes met for just a moment. Daniel looked away, uneasy. People like her didn't notice people like him. But Eleanor did something unexpected. She walked straight toward him. Conversations faded as she stopped inches away and handed him a small, sealed envelope. "For you," she said softly. Daniel hesitated. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else." She shook her head gently. "No. I haven't." Confused and slightly embarrassed, he accepted it. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. "Open it when you're ready," she added, her voice calm but meaningful. Before he could ask anything else, she turned and disappeared into the crowd. Daniel stared at the envelope in his hands, his heart beginning to race. Because somehow, he had a feeling this wasn't just a simple gift. Daniel slipped away from the noise of the party, his fingers tightening around the envelope as if it might disappear. He stepped into a quiet hallway, the distant music now muffled behind closed doors. For a moment, he just stood there, staring at it, his name written neatly across the front in unfamiliar handwriting. His heart pounded. Slowly, he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and a photograph. The photo stopped him cold. It was him, sitting on a park bench, gently tying his daughter's shoelaces. He remembered that day. She had been laughing, insisting she could do it herself, but letting him help anyway. It had been one of the rare moments where life felt simple. But how did she have this? With trembling hands, Daniel unfolded the letter. "Kindness is what you do when no one is watching." His eyes moved quickly across the page. Eleanor explained that she had seen him that day in the park. Not just once, but several times. Each time, he showed patience, warmth, and a kind of quiet strength that couldn't be faked. She had been going through one of the hardest periods of her life, questioning people, trust, and intentions. But watching him care for his daughter, without knowing anyone was observing, changed something in her. Daniel swallowed hard, emotions rising unexpectedly. The letter continued. "Tonight I saw you again, standing in a room that doesn't reflect who you truly are." He froze. Was she talking about his engagement? A sudden wave of unease washed over him. For the first time that evening, he questioned everything, his choices, his reasons, and whether he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. Daniel leaned against the wall, the letter shaking slightly in his hands. His mind raced. Every word Eleanor had written felt uncomfortably true. Was he really here for love, or just survival? He thought about his fiancée, her expectations, her family's wealth, the constant pressure to fit in. He had convinced himself it was the right thing to do for his daughter. But deep down, he knew something always felt off. Forced. Then his eyes dropped back to the letter. "You deserve a life built on truth, not fear." Daniel closed his eyes. Those words hit harder than anything else. For years, he had been afraid of not providing enough, afraid of failing his daughter, afraid of being alone. And that fear had slowly shaped his decisions, including this engagement. A memory surfaced, his daughter hugging him tightly just days ago. "Daddy, are you happy?" she had asked innocently. At the time, he smiled and said yes. But now, he wasn't so sure. The sound of laughter from the party echoed faintly, pulling him back to reality. That life, the one waiting behind those doors, suddenly felt distant, almost to him. Daniel took a deep breath and looked at the photograph again. That moment in the park, that was real. That was him. Not this version trying to impress people who never truly saw him. For the first time in a long while, clarity replaced confusion. He folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Then, without overthinking, Daniel made a decision that would change everything. He turned away from the party and started walking in the opposite direction. The cool night air hit Daniel's face as he stepped outside, his heart pounding, but this time, not from fear. It was something else. Something freeing. Behind him, the engagement party continued, unaware that the groom had just walked away from it all. He didn't stop. Each step felt like shedding a version of himself he no longer wanted to be. The expectations. The pressure. The quiet compromises he had been making for a life that never truly felt right. He reached for his phone, hesitating for just a second before dialing. When his fiancée answered, her voice cheerful and unaware, Daniel took a deep breath. "I'm sorry," he said honestly. "I can't do this." Silence followed. Then confusion. Then anger. But for once, Daniel didn't let it shake him. He didn't argue. He didn't explain more than necessary. Because deep down, he knew this wasn't about her. It was about finally being honest with himself. After the call ended, he stood still for a moment, letting the weight of what he'd done settle in. It was terrifying. But also right. As he walked toward his car, his thoughts shifted to his daughter. Her smile. Her laughter. Her simple question. "Daddy, are you happy?" Tonight, for the first time, he felt like he could finally give her a real answer. Just as he reached for the door handle, a familiar voice spoke from behind him. "I was hoping you'd choose yourself." Daniel turned around. Eleanor stood there, calm and composed, as if she had known this moment would happen all along. Daniel stared at Eleanor, still trying to process everything. "You knew?" he asked quietly. She gave a small, understanding smile. "I didn't know for sure. But I believed you would remember who you are." He looked down at the envelope still in his hand. "Why me?" Eleanor stepped a little closer, her voice gentle but firm. "Because people like you are rare. You do the right thing when no one is watching. And the world needs more of that." Daniel let those words sink in. No one had ever described him like that before. He had always seen himself as someone just trying to get by. Survive. But maybe, he was more than that. Eleanor continued. "I built my life surrounded by powerful people. But I've learned that kindness is the most powerful thing of all." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The night felt quieter, almost meaningful. "I don't know what happens next," Daniel admitted. She nodded. "You don't have to. Just make sure whatever comes next is real." Daniel smiled slightly. Not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because, for the first time, it felt honest. As Eleanor turned to leave, she paused briefly. "Oh, and Daniel?" He looked up. "That envelope wasn't just a reminder," she said. "It's an opportunity." Confused, he opened it again quickly, and this time, he noticed something he had missed before. A second paper. A job offer. A chance to work for her foundation, helping families just like his. Daniel's eyes widened, but this time, it wasn't fear he felt. It was hope. And as he drove home to his daughter that night, one thing became clear. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness can open the biggest doors.